Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. Welcome to what I like to call the aftermath of Super Bowl 59, where but my Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions once again for the second time in 8 years, ladies and gentlemen. We are finally doing it. We finally made it, folks. We made it through all the season. We crowned our champion. Thank God it was the Eagles, or else we were going to have some problems. But here we are. We're at the end of the season, and we're at the driest part of the season, in my opinion. So the next just to get this out of the way, please like and subscribe down below, just so I can keep this going through the off season. Seeing you guys, seeing the views, it really motivates me and keeps me going. So we're going to break down. I have a couple ideas of what we can do for this off season. Episodes might shift over to Saturdays now, every Saturday, because those episodes have in the past done better. So we might do once a week on Saturdays. But ultimately, we will see how it all shakes out at the end of the day. So yeah, getting almost right into it. Your Philadelphia Eagles stopped the three-peat, winning 40-20, and realistically, looking at the score, let's see, 40-20. Philadelphia Eagles were once again, for the second time in 8 years, we are Super Bowl champions. Jalen Hurts won Super Bowl MVP, of course, with Jalen Hurts going 17-22, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception for the air, 11 carries, 72 yards, and 1 touchdown on the ground. Saquon, a little bit more quieter. He had 25 carries on the ground, 57 rushing yards, but he also had 6 receptions for 40 yards through the air. So about 100 total yards of offense was done by Saquon Barkley. Devontae Smith was our top receiver with 4 receptions for 69 yards and 1 touchdown. A.J. Brown was the next closest with 3 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. And Jahan Dotson with 2 receptions for 42 yards. Overall, a fairly good day from the offense. They were fairly efficient. Special teams, and we'll go over this in a second. Special teams set them up in the right position and put them on short fields to go down and drive almost every single time. But the defense is where it's at. This defense looks like the 2020 Bucks defense back in Super Bowl 55 when the Bucks beat the Chiefs. Zach Bond, 1 interception. Cooper DeJean, 1 interception, returned for a pick 6. Let's see, where Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams, 2.5 sacks. Jalen Hunt, half a sack. I thought he had a full sack, but they must have given the other half to Josh Sweat. There was a few other. I'm surprised they're not showing up, but there are a few other things. Eagles had a total of 6 sacks on Patrick Mahomes. They were able to contain him, and they blitzed 0 times. All they had was their 4 up-front rushers, and I've seen people online saying, "Oh, that's not true. I saw them send Zach Bond down. They definitely blitzed at least once." Actually, no, they dropped Sweat into cover. No, they might have dropped Nolan Smith into coverage, and then sent Bond right up the middle. So, overall, we didn't have to blitz at all to stop them. Rather, we just contained Patrick Mahomes and made him feel uncomfortable within the pocket. Looking at this Chiefs offense while we're talking on it, a lot of these stats are garbage time stats. So, I don't even really count the fourth quarter realistically. We should have been up 34-6, and that should have been game. But Patrick Mahomes, 21 of 32, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also led the team in rushing with 4 carries for 25 yards. Xavier Worthy, 8 receptions for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce was the next closest with 4 receptions for 39 yards. Defensively, they were able to sack Jalen Hurts twice, I'm pretty sure. And the one interception was just a misread by Jalen there, so it wasn't really like the defense forcing him. Rather, it was Jalen shooting himself in the foot during that game. If Jalen didn't have that interception, his game would probably look perfect. And if we look back at this game without any context, it would have looked probably like the perfect game for him. But overall, fairly dominant, fairly impressive win by the Eagles right now. Looking back at the game, I was completely nervous the entire time, up until maybe the fourth quarter. Once I knew we were up 34-6, I knew that okay, all we have to do is just chew some clock, and then we'll be fine. No, they can't get to us, and I was right. We ended up winning 40-22. We were able to put up 2 more field goals in the fourth quarter, whereas the Chiefs, they were able to put up, I believe, 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions on our backups. Overall, it was a fairly good game by this defense. This defense played their best game of the season in the Super Bowl, which is probably when you want to play it for any team. What I said during my Super Bowl special is exactly what the Eagles did the entire time. On defense, they contained Mahomes and forced them into 3rd and long situations. And a lot of times when the Chiefs made it up, a penalty, a holding penalty, or some form of penalty, brought the ball back, and they had to go from even further of a distance on like 2nd and 15, 3rd and 15, which is almost impossible to convert every single time. At some point, the Chiefs were like 0-8 on 8-point conversions, and it wasn't until the fourth quarter till they actually passed the 50-yard line. So overall, it was a fairly weak day for this Patrick Mahomes-led offense, but their defense couldn't stop the Eagles either. I did think that Saquon would have more yards. He would find a way, and that's completely fine. Saquon doesn't have to win us the game every time, and that's what I've been saying the entire season. But I started to get concerned, especially in the first quarter, when they were like completely bottling them up, not allowing any form of hole for them to shoot through and maybe break a couple of tackles to get into the open field. But rather, Jalen Hurts passed the ball efficiently and used his legs sporadically in order to get the Eagles yards. He sat in the pocket. He was poised. He delivered the ball to where it was supposed to go. There was only a couple times where the interception was one. There was one where they were blitzing, and there was a miscommunication between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown wanted the go route. Jalen Hurts wanted the comeback route. So Jalen Hurts kind of threw the ball at A.J. Brown's back. Overall, it was a fairly impressive day by Jalen Hurts, and he kind of earned the Super Bowl MVP. I probably would have given it to Josh Sweat for his 2.5 sacks, and there was more than that. He had like 8 quarterback pressures on Patrick Mahomes. They just didn't allow Patrick Mahomes to stay comfortable during this game. Jalen played efficiently and had a couple explosive plays. The one everybody's going to remember is the one drive in the third quarter where we thought, okay, they're up. I want to say it was 27-6, and we were thinking, okay, they're just going to chew clock and take this into the fourth quarter and continue their drive that way. Nope. It was a play action. Jalen Hurts faked the handoff, dropped back into the pocket enough to give him some time against this Chiefs pass rush, who did play effectively. I'm not saying that they weren't a factor at all. They just weren't enough of a factor to throw Jalen Hurts off his game, which should have been the Chiefs' game plan from the get-go. But rather, Jalen Hurts dropped back and found Devontae Smith streaking down the middle of the field. There was no safeties deep, so his corner was trailing him just enough. I believe it was Trent McDuffie as well. Jalen Hurts just bombed a 50-yard pass down into the end zone. And overall, it was a fairly impressive day from the offensive standpoint, but it was a historic day from the defensive standpoint. Let's just say Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and Cooper DeJean and Zach Bond kind of made the day, honestly. Yes, a couple other people had some plays. Avonte Maddox had a play where he just got onto the ball and deflected it down, so they didn't pick up a first down. Jalen Carter was also a good enough factor, but they were double teaming him every play, and they shifted the backup right guard to left guard, put in somebody else at right guard. They might have took their left guard and put him at right guard, and able to contain Jalen Carter even more. But that doesn't matter because we had a Milton Williams on the line and a Josh Sweat on the line, constantly getting to the quarterback as well. Jordan Davis had a solid outing himself. Quinyon Mitchell was able to lock down when it mattered most. The only bad play was when he allowed DeAndre Hopkins to get a touchdown, but that was a tight window anyway, so he forced Mahomes to try and win the matchup rather than allowing Mahomes to win it. He forced him to. So that's a fairly important matchup that, honestly, Quinyon Mitchell, Guantanamo Bay, won again. Overall, I can kind of sit back and say that the Eagles achieved everything that I really said they had to do. Lull the Chiefs' defense asleep, run, explosive pass. They're not going to really expect that, and they were too keyed in on trying to stop the run, which allowed one-on-one matchups for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson. So overall, it was a fairly impressive outing for the Eagles as a whole. I'm quite proud to right now to say that I am an Eagles fan, and I've been an Eagles fan since birth. And in the past couple of days, it's been a weird state as an Eagles fan, and especially me, who I'm really into the game of football. Like, I'll go into the X's and O's and try to dissect game film, see what the Eagles have to do in a broader aspect in order to relay the message to my listeners. And I have quite enjoyed doing that this entire season, and I will continue to do that because I will be back for next season. I'm not stopping this. We're not stopping this during the off season. It might become a little bit more sporadic, especially with me being in college. It's hard, and I've found the time that works best for me to bring you guys the best content available. But overall, sitting here as a lifelong Eagles fan, I've been able to see two championship teams, one in 2017, 2018, and one in 2024, 2025. Do I believe the Eagles can repeat? Yes, I do believe the Eagles can repeat. There's a chance. What I'm most concerned about is the offensive coordinator position, which we will get into in a couple of seconds here. What does this mean for Patrick Mahomes' legacy? Well, it's definitely a big blemish. He had a chance to win, and he kind of blew it there at the end. Patrick Mahomes had a chance to do something Tom Brady never had a chance to do and could never do. At the end of the day, he couldn't win the game, and he couldn't win the legacy. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes would have won, let's just say hypothetically he would have won, it was a close game, but he found a way to win. And now he three-peated. He had three rings. He would have had more rings than Brady at this time at this age. He's already been to more Super Bowls, but the AFC, especially in the playoffs, is very weak unless your name is like the Bengals. So I'm not overly impressed, honestly. So just thinking about it, Tom Brady, as of right now, the GOAT debate is not over, and I'll forever say that, and especially once we get into like the 2030s, we're talking about like a whole different era of football that Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady are just the GOATs of their own eras. Bradshaw was the GOAT of his era. Montana was the GOAT of his era. The 90s didn't really have it the greatest of all time. Some could argue maybe, I hate to say this, maybe Aikman, because he just found a way to win, especially on his team. And I'll get back to Aikman in a second here. But overall, I could see Patrick Mahomes ultimately passing Tom Brady in the GOAT discussion. But right now, those discussions are closed. And I did like, I heard this said, and I don't like the media talking heads on ESPN, Fox Sports, NFL Network. They're fine. They're down-to-earth people. 94.1 WIP. Any of these big talking heads I don't really like, because at the end of the day, they're just doing it for the reaction, the clicks, whatever. But overall, I will say that I did like this take that with Patrick Mahomes playing so poorly, especially in his 2 Super Bowl losses, it brings in one guy back into the conversation, and that would be Joe Montana. I'm personally a Montana fan, even though I don't like the 49ers whatsoever. I am a Montana fan, and I do believe that he was, until Brady, he was probably the greatest quarterback of all time. So, understandable. That take, it's definitely interesting, and I can definitely see where that works, where Montana now is coming back into the conversation. I mean, he played in 4 Super Bowls, he won 4 Super Bowls, so he's undefeated. The only other quarterback that can say that is Terry Bradshaw. And he did that with Steve Young breathing down his neck, especially in the last 2. So, and he set the precedence for his era of football there. So, overall, Tom Brady, as of right now, is the greatest of all time. And Mahomes, I do feel like Mahomes and the Chiefs, and we'll talk about this probably next week when we talk about, maybe we'll go over individual expectations for all teams next season, especially coming into the new season, and especially the new NFL new year in a month or so. But I do feel like the Chiefs might take a step back. It's unknown whether Travis Kelce is going to return. It's unknown if they're going to be able to re-sign a lot of their guys. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes' legacy takes a turn next year and how he can recover from the Super Bowl loss. Because this is major. This hurts, and it hurts bad. But at the same time, talking about legacy, what does this mean for Jalen Hurts? I'm going to be honest, especially early in his career, I wasn't a huge Hurts fan. It wasn't until 2021 where I started to come around a little bit. And even last year, I was hard on him because I knew what he could be. I knew he could be the winner. He's outplayed Patrick Mahomes twice in the Super Bowl. And one time he lost. So it says volumes to me that although his team is one of the best built teams in probably NFL history, he still finds a way to win, especially against the quote-unquote greatest of all time, Patrick Mahomes. So I do feel that, and I heard this take by Shannon Sharp, that Jalen Hurts could be like the Troy Aikman of our era. He has one of the greatest teams built around him, but he commands it, and he finds a way to win against anybody, no matter what. So I do kind of agree that the Eagles' window is open. We have a lot of young studs. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jahan Dotson still on his rookie deal. We have contract extensions until at least 2027 is when we're going to have to start worrying about re-signing some of our stars. So especially next year, we'll have another shot at the Super Bowl. And do I expect us to get back there? After winning this way, I do expect us to get back. But I also expect the defense to play at a higher level next year than it has all of last season. And we'll see with offensive coordinator whether what happens there. I hope that we find somebody qualified. I have a couple ideas what we can do, which I'll get into that in a second here. But overall, there's a higher expectation now. We've won. We now have a Super Bowl ring. So there's an expectation that we can go back to the game and win it again. All right. So we now have to live up to that. Jalen Hurts, he's proven to be a winner. And in my eyes, I have a Jalen Hurts Super Bowl jersey sitting over on my chair over there that I can see right from here. So in my eyes, I do believe that for the next couple years, the Eagles, let's say next 2 years, Eagles will constantly be in contention. Now, do I believe that we'll win the Super Bowl the next 2 years? No. It's one of the hardest things to do in sports because you have one chance every week once you get to the playoff. It ain't like baseball where you have a series. It ain't like basketball where you have a series. It ain't like hockey where you have a series. You got one shot, and you have to bring out your best version of yourself. And we definitely saw that with the Chiefs this past Super Bowl, that they didn't bring their best version of their game to the field, and they ultimately lost. So the Eagles will definitely be in contention for the next couple of years. This defense is definitely going to be the heartbeat of this team, especially with what we don't know about this offensive coordinator situation here, who Kellen Moore's taking with him to the Saints. So overall, I do feel like the Eagles, and I won't really talk about what the expectations are going to be until we talk about the entire NFL. Maybe we'll get to free agency and see who the big name stars go to. But overall, there is an expectation now that we can find a way to win. All right, so let's get into the Eagles' keys to success after Super Bowl 59. So the first major thing we have to worry about is offensive coordinator search. There are several different good candidates out there. Since Kellen Moore obviously is not coming back, he signed a deal with the Saints to be head coach. He has a chance to be a great head coach down there, but it's a horrible situation in my eyes. So the first and most likely candidate would be an internal hire, which I'm kind of iffy about, Kevin Patula. He's definitely... obviously, he's the leader in the offensive coordinator search. He's been Sirianni's right-hand man throughout Sirianni's tenure at the Eagles. He's been with the Eagles all 4 years, so he kind of knows a thing or two about this team, how the team ticks, how to make them work. And obviously, he won't... obviously, in this search, Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, because I believe the two of them will be working together, will be thoroughly looking through every opportunity, but they won't have to worry about getting a new defensive coordinator because they know Vic Fangio isn't going anywhere. He's going to be the heartbeat and rock of that defense on that side of the ball. So it's definitely going to be a little bit of a search. I don't want them just to hire somebody to hire them right off the bat. I want somebody that can bring some ingenuity to this offense and bring something new even. Running the ball is still going to be our forte, but rather I want to see something to grow Jalen's abilities, not as a passer per se, but as a quarterback, as a whole. Patula, currently a passing game coordinator and assistant head coach from this past season under the Eagles, under Nick Sirianni. So we know Sirianni. There's already a camaraderie there. Has been a position coach at many different positions throughout his tenure at Philly. I believe he's been a wide receivers coach, a quarterback coach. There's probably like one more that I'm forgetting about on the offensive side of the ball, but right now he's a passing game coordinator. My only hesitation is the last time we did an internal hire, it completely backfired in the face of Nick Sirianni. That being Brian Johnson, who was the quarterback's coach for Jalen Hurts the year that, back in 2022, the year that he had his MVP campaign. So I am slightly hesitant at this hire. I would like to see. I would like the Eagles to explore other options before landing on Kevin Patula. But if it's ultimately him that ends up becoming the play caller, um, I would like to see how he uh, creates his own style of this Eagles offense, because it's not going to be the same as Kellen Moore, but I want them to genuinely be a threat in both the running game and the passing game, which they have the weapons to do. The next person, I would say the tops, another top uh, offensive coordinator for this position would be Marcus Brady. He has ties to Sirianni through past coaching gigs. He was the offensive coordinator after Sirianni was hired in Philly. He is currently the Chargers passing game coordinator. It leaves me a little bit hesitant because of how stagnant the passing offense was at times during the Chargers, during his tenure at the Chargers there last year under Hardball. But I believe that was more Hardball than it was Marcus Brady himself. I do believe he could build a solid career here in Philly as an offensive coordinator and make a name for himself. But how stagnant their offensive passing game looked would leave me a little bit hesitant, and I would still want him to stick to the running game like they did over with that Chargers offense when the passing game got a little bit slow. Another interesting name that I have seen been thrown around a little bit is Jim Caldwell. It's been a while since I've heard that name mentioned, but Jim Caldwell has a large amount of coaching experience as offensive coordinator, as head coach, and currently a senior assistant at the Panthers on the offensive side of the ball. He's more like a Fangio type. If we wanted somebody that could bring in smash mouth football on the offensive side of the ball, this might be the guy to bring in. He's clearly at the age of 70, he's not looking for a head coaching job, so he'd be less likely to lose the next year's coaching cycle as a whole. He would bring a different mentality to this offense, like I said, but I don't want him just to commit to the run. Rather, I would like him to use the run and pass complementary to each other. I would want to see an efficient pass game and a dominant run game if possible, but he seems like a guy that might shy away from the passing offense and focus too much on this rushing offense. He would need a successor in place after a few years, but he would definitely be a solid piece to ride out on for like maybe 3-4 years as offensive coordinator. And then lastly, I thought another interesting idea and an interesting choice that we could have would be Josh McCown. Now, Josh McCown has been rumored to be looking for an offensive coordinator job for years now, and he's settled for quarterbacks coach for a couple of years now. It could be an interesting choice how he would shape this offense as a whole. And he is kind of credited, him and obviously Kevin O'Connell are credited for helping elevate Sam Darnold's play to an MVP type level, in my opinion. Uh, uh, it's a little bit nervousing for me, or concerning for me that he has never played or called plays before, and they had a collapse at the end of the season, especially in Darnold's play. So I'd definitely be interested to see how he would shape up as a offensive coordinator candidate. Now, here's my idea. As much as I would like Marcus Brady to be our top guy for offensive coordinator, bring him in, allow him to shape up this offense, see what he would do. It's most likely going to Kevin Patula. And so that brings me to two options here. And what I think would be our main option. One, we just have Kevin Patula in here. Well, we just have to pray that this guy shapes up and performs well as play caller and offensive coordinator, and we don't see that stagnant, slow, no motion offense or pre-snap motion offense, short bubble route, short pass offense that Brian Johnson was notorious for as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in 2022. But what I would like to have is we can hire Kevin Patula as offensive coordinator. That's fine, but we bring on Jim Caldwell as our offensive, assistant offensive, senior NFL, senior offensive coordinator, something like that. Bring him in, have him sit behind Kevin Patula in the wings, ready to take over. And we can even bring in Josh McCown as quarterbacks coach, because we're going to lose Nussmeier with Kellen Moore. So we bring in a Josh McCown for quarterbacks coach, and we have a Jim Caldwell sitting in the wings. We have two options in case Patula goes south. We have two solid, interesting options that could come in and help use their experience to shape the offense. Ultimately, I do believe they'll probably end up going with Kevin Patula, which isn't my favorite thing. Again, I would rather have Marcus Brady come in, try to make a name for himself here. But after coaching, the offensive coordinator search and the offensive coordinator staff search, what's next for the Eagles? What can they do to continue to rebuild a championship? And although I'm not going to be talking about free agency yet, maybe for a couple more weeks, and players that haven't re-signed that are looking like they're going to go back into free agency, what free agents do the Eagles have to re-sign to kind of rebuild this championship caliber team? Currently sitting at $25 million in cap without restructuring any contracts. If Howie could work his magic, that can grow up to a max of $63 million to work with. Okay, let's go into our top targets that must be re-signed. Zack Baun, obviously, needs to be the number one target when it comes to re-signing, to the re-signing process. Eagles, he's already been rumored to be eager to re-sign with the Eagles, and grateful for the Eagles to give him this opportunity to show what he's truly valued at. I could most likely see a world where he signs a minimum contract of $13 million a year for 3 or 4 years. Maybe over that time you could have like a certain amount. Let's see, 13, 26, 39. So let's say they go for a 3-year deal, because he's on the older side. He'll be 28 next season. $13 million a year with a guaranteed $20 million. That's a solid deal right there. And if he goes for the 4-year, it puts him out even further, gives him even more money. So let's say he could end up with roughly around, I would say, $50 million a year with $25 million guaranteed over 4 years. That wouldn't be a solid deal for him. That would be a solid deal for him right there. And by then, he might be on the older side, so we would see how the rest of the contracts would shake out. But ultimately, Zack Baun has to be our number one person to re-sign this offseason. Mekhi Becton is also up there for me. He has to be our top target in order to shore up this offensive line for a couple of years here. He'll likely want to earn between $18.5 to $20 million a year, ultimately being paid to a caliber of the top right guard position right now in this market. He might take a little bit less money if he can contend for a ring, but who knows? Ultimately, a few other franchises will definitely pay top dollar for a top-tier guard like Mekhi Becton has become. I do think he ultimately ends up re-signing with the Eagles, though it definitely takes a decent amount of our salary salary cap away. Jesus, sorry, I can't speak today. My lips must be frozen from the cold temperature outside, so there you go. But yeah, I ultimately do feel like Mekhi Becton does ultimately resign, though it takes a little bit of moolah to bring him back for at least, I feel like a 4-year deal would be a solid deal. Mekhi Becton is not on the older age, so we can definitely get him until he's like 28 and the 28, 29, and then we can always find somebody to replace him eventually later on, at maybe within the last 2 years of his contract. And finally, out of the big three that we have to resign, I would say Milton Williams is definitely up there. And I'll get to Josh Sweat after I go through all these, but I'll tell you why he's not in the top three in a little bit here. So Milton Williams is definitely the last target of the top re-signs that the Eagles have to do as soon as possible. He's a great complement for Jalen Carter and or Jordan Davis as well. He's younger, so a 4-year deal would most likely be in order. I would say $18 million a year at the very least, or up to $21 or $22 million a year at most, would put him above some household names like a who is he above? Hold on. Let's see. Hold on. I have it right here. Interior defensive line. If he gained, let's say he got the max $21 to $22 million a year, he would be making DeForest Buckner, Daron Payne, and Jeffrey Simmons money. So that would be a solid payday, but we should try to aim for lower if possible so we can save us much money for when we have to re-sign the Philly Dogs, especially Jalen Carter, who's going to want a decent amount of moolah when it comes to getting his contract re-upped. But yeah, I do feel like Milton Williams does deserve the bag. Paying him maybe 21 or $20 million a year wouldn't be too horrible. You would want to try to figure out a way to get Mekhi Becton to take less or Milton Williams to take less in this situation here. But overall, I do feel like it will definitely be enticing for some of these players to come back because they know the system, they know Fangio's system, they know they can win, and they know how dominant they can be as a defense together. Now, these aren't the top targets that that the Eagles have to resign, but I feel like it would be nice for them to resign them. First one being Oren Burks. He was a solid fill-in for Nakobe Dean, but at age 30, his talents may start to decline a little bit, so he definitely wouldn't be as expensive. We need depth currently at the linebacker position anyway, and especially after this free agency. And a 1 or 2 year deal for around $10 million in total would be a solid deal for both parties. Maybe around $8 million guaranteed. So maybe $2 million in incentives or signing bonus. So bringing Oren Burks back shouldn't be too hard of a task. He's not going to ask for top linebacker money, but if he ultimately does, we can just let him walk and have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Fill in for an Oren Burks in this situation. Darius Slay, again, he also would only need a 1-year deal for his last year, and he would probably be a little cheap since he's going to hit 35 years old as a corner next year. As the Eagles, I wouldn't try to oversell him in his return. He's clearly on his last legs. He's even said that at the age of 34. So I wouldn't sign him for more than $7 million guaranteed. I would aim for around 5. I feel like 5 is fair, guaranteed. Maybe up to 7 with incentives on a 1-year deal. If he doesn't retire this offseason, which there are rumors swirling that he's going to go one way or the other, whether he's going to re-sign with the Eagles or he's going to retire this offseason. Isaiah Rodgers would be next. He played solid when he came in for Darius Slay a few times throughout the season. Needs to continue working on his zone coverage, and he can definitely be beat deep, so we need to find somebody else to maybe replace him. But he wouldn't be a solid 1 or maybe a 2-year deal, 3-year deal. In my notes, I said we would probably give him around $7.5 to $8 million for 3 years. It's completely fair because he has not proven himself as much as the top corners, but also he makes much more than the rookies around him. The cornerback market is really cheap right now for some reason. I didn't realize how cheap it was. I mean, looking at it, let's see. The top corner, Jalen Ramsey, he's making $24 million. Obviously, Isaiah Rodgers is no Jalen Ramsey or Patrick Surtain, so I could easily see him making around maybe around Jonathan Jones or Byron Murphy. Derek Stingley is getting paid cheap, though. I believe after this season he might get extension, so he'll be getting paid top dollar. But yeah, it would put him around Byron. It would put him around Sean Murphy Bunting, Ahmad Gardner, and Byron Murphy money right now. So I feel like that's only fair. He needs to prove himself a little bit more. Then we can talk maybe restructuring the contract. But he needs to prove himself that he can be a lockdown corner like a Darius Slay or a Quintanamo Bay. And then finally, either Jack Driscoll or Fred Johnson, we don't need both, should return in order to keep some of the depth at offensive line. Both can play guard and tackle. They have proven that in games. Stoutland has been developing and probably will continue developing these guys. I would lean more towards Fred Johnson, and here's why. We had more of a sample size of what he is, especially this season. He did an amazing job filling in for missing linemen early in the season, and I would definitely get them on a cheap $5 million, cheap 1 year $5 million or a 2-year with $8 million guaranteed. So overall, a fairly cheap deal to bring back some offensive line depth picks or pieces here. Finally, why wouldn't I re-sign Brandon Graham? Because he's retiring. All right, so that debate, that discussion is over. Why wouldn't I re-sign Josh Sweat? Well, if we look at the edge rusher market right now, let's see. Nope. Edge rushers, here we go. The top edge rusher right now, Nick Bosa, is getting paid $34 million. All right. He's not a Nick Bosa level, but he's up there. He's like probably the Neil Hunter, Montez Sweat, Myles Garrett level of production, especially for this Eagles team this past season. So he would be asking for around $25 million a year, probably for 4 years. And I just don't think that where the Eagles are at, and especially with how Jalen Hunt is looking and Nolan Smith are looking, obviously we'll have to add some depth pieces to be behind these guys and some rotational pieces that Vic Fangio feels like he can shape and become the best versions of themselves. Overall, I do feel like there will be a couple of cheaper edge pieces in free agency. So if I go to, let's see, I could definitely see, the Eagles definitely would probably pick up 1 or 2 cheap edge rushers throughout free agency. There's a few younger guys. I do expect them to pick up a older guy probably. Maybe I would find it funny if we picked up DeMarcus Lawrence, but I don't really see that happening. Rather, I would see probably, let's see, an older guy, more like a Dante Fowler. I could see us possibly trying to make a move for Dennis Gardeck. I could see us making a move for Morgan Fox. I could see us making a move for. But again, you're going to have to remember, and we're going to get into this during the free agency video, some places are going to be more primed for ring chasers than others. Obviously, the Chiefs will probably continue to be that. Eagles are going to be that this offseason. Ravens, I feel like, will definitely be that. Lions will definitely be that. So some of these places are definitely going to be more advantageous for older vets looking for a ring to come to try to secure the ring. And they might come on a little bit cheaper deals just so they can try to contend here. And even if we take a young guy, let's say, and I don't really like this, but let's say we sign a Chase Young to a cheap, like, 2-year deal. We can bring this guy into our system, shape him, make him like almost as good as a Josh Sweat based on Fangio's system. Somebody I would like for us to make a move on would probably be let's see. I wouldn't mind a Contavious Street. Bring him in on a 2-year deal. He'll be 30 by the time his deal's up, and we can just really make him like a rotational guy. So I don't really fear that Josh Sweat will be a huge piece missing. Yes, the production will be missed, and yes, we're going to have to ask more out of Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt off the edge. But I'm not too concerned because I believe Howie will probably bring in a couple of cheap pieces that Fangio can shape, that are Fangio approved, that he can ultimately build into winners. So with all that being said and with all that news out of the way, I will say I will be at the parade on Friday during Valentine's Day. I'll be celebrating the love of my life, the Philadelphia Eagles, winning their second Super Bowl. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I feel like, especially during the off season, there are going to be a couple more other segments that I've been working on that I feel like will definitely fit. But I feel like this kind of style where I break down, okay, these are the free agents that the Eagles should go after. Here's a cap hit of the Eagles currently. Here's contracts that they could either extend or restructure to bring in more money for free agents. I feel like that will ultimately be the style that this will end up being, especially for the time being, until we hit free agency, and then I'll probably have some new segments as well. So with all that being said, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and remember, go Birds!